Okay. I'm so excited. Olivia.
Same.
Uh, so you already had questions, and I just want to address them. So
Yeah,
this,
I love
I
it.
used to study Buddhism. And so when I mean, I still do, but I got like a Buddhist name and all that stuff. But I was, at every shrine, there's always a crystal ball at the center because it's like clear-mindedness and everything like that. So I got this from the Shambhala Mountain Center in Colorado, which has now been renamed because there was some like controversy and all this kind of stuff and crumbled with Shambhala over like a few years ago. But
Yes.
now it's called the Drala Mountain Center or something like that. So anyway, it's from another life, but I still love it.
Wow, I love it. Isn't it a beautiful centerpiece, you guys?
You guys,
I love it, you
you
guys. It's interactive.
guys,
Everyone's here.
everyone's here.
Yeah.
So I am so excited to have you here. I'm sure we're going to get
Same.
into a lot of conversations, and you do have to remind me a little bit about your chart because I don't remember all the details, but we'll get into it. We'll talk about each other's charts a little bit. Um, Today's episode is called Ellie Has a Birth Chart and She's Gorgeous.
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
And so, today we're going to talk about all this kind of fun stuff. So, welcome back to my show called My Planets in What?
Yes.
Where we read birth charts, talk about cities, talk about exes, talk about anything. I kind of, I can't help it. I have Sag rising and my Jupiter in Gemini, so I'm like, can be a little chaotic, but I try to keep it all together. But yeah, Ellie has a birth chart, and we're going to get into talking about that because maybe it'll explain why there are all the earthquakes and why rent is $4,000 a month and why
Yes.
everyone is so interested in beauty and health and all of that kind of stuff. So okay, this is Olivia. I met Olivia at
Hi.
a salon on the west side with our friend Judith, who was on last week's podcast.
Yes, even though neither of us are West Siders, we both
No.
live
We-
over here very close on the east side
East side.
of Los Angeles.
Yes,
So,
and we both made a trek because we felt something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're connected. We're both threes, you guys.
Oh my God, we're both threes.
We're both threes.
So explain how that works.
Yes. So I am a professional astrologer. I'm no numerologist. I am but an elementary to intermediate student. However, your birth date is referred to as one's psychic number. And I am very obsessed with one's birth date and or psychic number. And it's meant to be used in tandem with one's life path number. But I prefer my birth date number to my life path number. So,
I think my life path number is like 7 or something. But
that's
I'm not sure. Or
great
maybe it's a
one.
1. I don't know. Oh, well, we should
That's
check.
a great one. But we were both, so I'm born October 30th and you are
21st, August 21st.
August 21st. So we are both threes.
So you add the numbers together.
That's right. Yeah, and there are 9 numbers and then there's 3 master numbers, which is going to be 11, 22, 33, right?
So what do you feel like, because for me, I look at addresses. That's what my teacher said. Just look at addresses. Like, if you add up an address to a building that you're going to live in, you want that to be 3 or like a multiple of 3, like 6 and 9 can also be good for 3s, as far as I understand, better than other numbers. And I've always found that when I was able to live in a 3 location, I just had a better experience.
Yes, my parking spot number is 21. Yeah, and my building does total to 3. And fun fact, my first love, he was a very good integral part of, I feel like, my highest path journey. We were not meant to be together, you guys. It's okay. But he played a bunch of sports and his number was 21 in everything. And I feel like that is a good sign.
I think it's interesting with 21 as well because that's tends to be where the zodiac sign boundary is. So there's kind of like, and I know that boundary shifts over time, but I feel like it's a fluctuating point.
Synchronicities. Yes.
So what's your, as we get into talking about LA, kind of breaking this down, that's going to be kind of a little bit later in the show where we really get into the chart, but Like, what's your relationship to LA? Like, your personal relationship?
Oh my God, that's an incredible question. Good job. Good job. I always say when people ask me this, and I answer it more frequently than one would think. Los Angeles for me is a calling, and sometimes our callings are enjoyable, and sometimes they are greater than us, and they have a bigger purpose. And my purpose, the ruler of my chart is Saturn. So I'm a malefic dominant person. My social,
I'm a malefic dominant person.
no, I am. My TikTok is the malefic woman because I'm a Scorpio Sun, Mars, Mercury, Pluto, Pallas. The ruler of my chart is Saturn in its domicile as well, Aquarius, 0 degrees. The ruler of my chart is Capricorn. So I'm a Capricorn ascendant, ruler of the chart, Saturn and Aquarius.
Where do you think you get the like bubbly energy from then?
3, and I'm a Leo moon.
Oh, Leo moon.
I'm a Leo
So there's
moon.
like an enjoying of some of the drama.
Yeah, in the 8th house. So I almost need the drama. I'll create it if you leave me dormant.
Does that mean you're not sometimes not even aware of the drama that you're creating?
So here is what I believe about Leo moons intuitively and studying over time. It's my second favorite moon sign. I'm very proud of it. However, if you leave us to lie in not a good or healthy place and we're not focusing on a higher path and honoring a calling of generous leadership, which is Leo's ideal, we will create drama
Did
as
you
a
just do this?
distraction. Yeah.
You just made it. So for the listeners, she just made like a triangle with her hands when she's saying Leo's, idea of what is a generous
Ideal calling.
generous leadership.
Yeah.
Which
generous leadership.
I'm a Leo, and I like definitely relate to that. Like I'm like that as a leader, and I require and expect other people to be sort of selfless, generous leaders, and obviously that rarely happens out there in the wild.
Yes. Do you know I get really pissed off about modern like pop astrology takes on Leo as exclusively associating it with like performance, celebrity, unhealthy ego, or like less evolved ego.
Right.
Because
I mean,
in the
of course,
ancient world,
I'm embarrassed to be like, Leos aren't like that, but I'm just like, in my experience, that tends to not really be the case. Like
Yeah.
the egotism of that. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. There's drama. There is drama. There is drama.
Yeah, because in the ancient world, Leo is leadership. Leo is like, I know kings and monarchies can be gross, they can turn gross, of course, and that's how empires work. But what they were called to be is generous, heart-led leaders. It literally, Leo rules the heart and the upper back, and are meant to serve from the heart. So yeah, I believe that Leo moons, because they're called to be creative and to be leaderful inherently and generous leaders, if they're not doing that, if they're not honoring their call, they will create consciously and unconsciously drama to focus on and disassociate with.
Wow. I relate with that. Yeah, I think my life gets full of drama when I'm not being true to myself. I bet a lot of people could relate with that, but okay, time for segment 2, which is one of my favorites. So this is called Chart Confessions. So what sign do people always think that you are? Do people get it on the dot, like that you're a Saturnian person?
No, people often guess Pisces, Gemini, Leo, and Libra most often. I would say Pisces, Gemini, and Leo. Aries often.
I could see Aries.
Yes.
I could. Where do you think that's
Vedic
coming from?
astrologers will guess that I'm Aries. And I have a theory that they associate that with Aries, like intensity, intense eye contact, whatever. It's Mars.
Which she does have. I will tell you all listeners that there's some serious eye gazing going on.
Yes. Yeah. You too. Well, you just have beautiful eyes.
Oh, thank you.
You have really beautiful green eyes.
People, yeah, yep. People like don't like sometimes people like you have green eyes. Like people, I don't know.
There were 2 Leos at the salon where we met a week ago, you guys, that have beautiful green eyes. Because green are the most rare, so I always think they're like special.
Yeah, I have to. I'm enjoying the attention, but yeah. Thank you. That is so sweet. Okay, is there a sign that you sort of irrationally hate that you're like, I know I'm an astrologer, but like, you're judgy.
Hate is a big word I really struggle
right.
with.
Like an aversion, like a knee-jerk reaction. And it's okay, we're not saying like these people are bad. It's just like that knee-jerk. Like, like I've had people say Aries, Gemini, someone, Letty, who was at the salon was like, Geminis.
Yes, I shouldn't do this, but there is kind of 2. I should just stick to one. But I would say Libras are really hard for me as a very Mars and very water and earth dominant person, especially because Libra men find me. Libra men unconsciously seek out Mars dominant women. They
find you.
They love Aries dominant women and Scorpio dominant women because they are unconsciously always looking for Mars. Because they are Venus, right? They are a lot for me because they're flighty. They're always like, there's the devil's advocate thing in the unevolved sense. There's the struggles with like commitment.
It's interesting because, in Hellenistic astrology, we look at the relationship between the planets, and like Venus and Mars have this narrative of being like the woman and the man, but also, in terms of their domiciles, they don't like each other. They're not comfortable in each other's spaces because Mars is forced to like be self-reflective and like calm and self-soothe, and vice versa. Venus is asked to be like aggressive, which is a whole other story because last week we talked about mythology of Venus going to the underworld, and she is quite tough. She has Taurus as one of her, rulerships. So she can be very tough. But in any case, I always find it interesting how planets are drawn to each other even when they don't, when they're sort of at odds with one another.
Yeah, I think that's where the spiritual and intuitive part of astrology comes in, where we are called to trigger and activate one another to dig into what's underneath there, what's under the hood. So I struggle with Libras, mostly the men, of course, but Libras in general.
They don't, it's interesting. Libra is the only sign that isn't ruled by like an animal or a human. It's the only non-living object or, of the zodiac. And I find that really interesting because, Libras, they have a hard time taking an opinion. And because they're the scales, they can't actually make a judgment without comparing it to something else. And that kind of trope about partners asking what they want to have for dinner. It's like, what do you want? Well, I don't know. What do you want? And then until you tell the Libra, okay, well, let's get burgers. And they're like, no. And like, but I don't really care. And like, okay, well, what about, Chinese food? No. Okay, what do you want? I don't know. I don't care. It's like that is very Libra. They have to compare it against something else and for them to know what they want. And so there's that calm, sort of cerebral energy to Libra because it's that non-living point of view.
Yes. Yeah. And then this week I've been thinking a lot about how annoying Pisces dominant men are to me. I was seeing on TikTok Chris Martin, like at his little Coldplay concert, crying in that song that is like the new Silver Springs. Yeah, okay. about fumbling Dakota Johnson or whatever. But here's what a Pisces man will do, sun and moon. is they will just not show up in the ways that you ask and state and require. And then they will offer you other like sort of romantic trinkets, right? And then you'll sort of stick, in bad cases, you'll stick around if you're not conscious or with it. And then they'll say they love you so much, they'll like fumble you, right? And then there's the big like water show of like, this is love. And so Pisces dominant men, the whole story is love is pain. They'll say that. They'll say that out loud.
And it's not just men. It like Pisces rising, I see that. There is a Pisces thing that's love is pain, big time.
Yeah. So they'll create the pain and then they won't change, because there are options, right? You could go to therapy, you can work with things, you can change. And instead, it's almost like they would choose the pain so that they can make art of it, or deeper,
it's the sign
have a spiritual track.
Of art, really, at the end of the day. And you need something to digest to produce meaningful art most of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have any birthday twins, like celebrity birthday twins?
Yes, with me.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed to say. I believe Ivanka Trump is one. Julia Roberts. I believe.
I love that for you.
Is she my birthday twin or is she? So Julia Roberts and I are both Scorpio sun, Leo moons, opposite rising. She's a Cancer rising. I'm a Capricorn rising.
She is such a Cancer rising. Just that doe-eyed kind of like emotional.
And the way her life trajectory went, where she hit it big in the 20s, 30s, and then the minute she had kids, it's not that her career was over. It's not that anybody said you can't work anymore. It's that she said, I want to live on the farm and disappear with my little family.
She was like, she's converted into like a mother.
Yes.
And that became her priority.
Yes.
Yeah. And so her moon's in Leo, you said? Mm-hmm. That is such a great placement for an actor. Yeah.
No, I agree. Yeah. Also, Tracy Ellis Ross is a Scorpio sun, Leo moon.
Mm-hmm. So, well. How gay is astrology on a scale of 1 to 10?
Gay 10, 57.
It's my favorite thing to ask people because, it's such a queer space. And I like to understand it that it's, I think a lot of queer people are like disenfranchised from like mainstream religion and they don't feel like there's a place for them. And so I find, myself in these astrological spaces with a lot of queer people. And I think it's a space that people are able to really create a spiritual space that works for them. And what I like about astrology is there's not a lot of dogma around it. Like you have these lineages, these people who study, who teach, and they encourage people to think for themselves and learn how they're gonna interpret things. So I feel like it produces philosophers instead of like kind of religious people. And I think that's the kind of space that people who don't feel as accepted by mainstream religions like feel comfortable.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to say something that like somebody might check me on or might be like inaccurate or something. It's just my take. But Hermes Trismegistus, just to me, seems like the gayest motherfucker, flamboyant gay. Like Hermes is genderless. No,
you're talking about Mercury. You're talking about Mercury.
But I really see them as one, right? Because they are. When we talk about Mercury, we're kind of talking about Hermes.
Yeah. Who is the god of the messenger to the underworld?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which also tells that story about Mercury as being this sort of impartial person. Mm-hmm. Like every planet has like these affinities for something, but Mercury just takes on whatever sign it's in. It doesn't have like a strong opinions, which is why I feel like that Gemini kind of trope where they can kind of go wherever the wind blows, because they don't have a strong opinion one way or another. They just go with what is happening. Do you feel that?
Yes, which is hard.
Yeah, I have Jupiter in Gemini, and the Gemini thing, I do end up doing everything twice. So I do things fast, and then I mess it, and then I made a mistake. I have to do it all over again. Happens every day.
Yes, we both have kind of unhappy Jupiter and Virgo. Jupiter and
Yeah.
Gemini.
And I know quite a few people who first, I mean, you don't have this. Well, what's your Saturn?
Aquarius.
Okay, so you have Saturn in its own sign, which is
Yeah.
great. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So you have confidence in who you are.
Kind
Kind of?
Well, it's in the second house of self-esteem, right?
Okay,
If you
that
think
is
about
tough.
second house. But yeah.
I mean, but I have quite a few people in my life who their first lord is in detriment, and a lot of times in the seventh house, which is interesting. And I want to do a whole episode about relationship placements. But it's interesting having my first lord in the seventh on the seventh house cusp, and having other people, quite a few other people in my life, including my boyfriend, who have that similar placement. And it's like that. It's like relationships really do come first. They're consuming, and you go out of your way in detriment to focus on that other person because you can't focus on somebody else without going into detriment.
Oh my God, my heart
Isn't that interesting?
aches for this I have one placement in the seventh, my south node in Cancer, and I feel like it's a very similar archetypal story where all my past life memories are of being someone's plus one, and it's my comfort zone, and it's what I know how to do. But I'm always like
Yeah,
being asked to
sitting in
break
that
away.
south node.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard. Is that your only seventh house placement?
Yeah,
But it's still epic because it's your ruler. The
yeah,
ruler of your
that's
chart.
right on the angle. So, it's like it's Jupiter, so it's like it helps. But I have to really I have to stay persistent, and I almost always am gonna have to do something twice to like. It's like I'll do it, I'll give up, and then I come back to it. And
Yeah.
sometimes I come back to things a Jupiter cycle later, like 6 years, 12 years later, come back to what I put aside. So I know that about myself. And I also have like really strong relationship with Saturn in my first house. So everything for me is 7-year
Ooh.
cycles, like
You
the
can
last
feel
7-year
that way.
cycle to me was just go, go, go.
Yeah.
Go, go, go.
Yeah. Your Saturn is.
And
Wow.
Sag in the first
Oh,
house.
so Saturn in Pisces was squaring your natal Saturn that whole time.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. In the fourth, Saturn was transiting Pisces.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Home. Right. Okay. Before we dive into LA,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a little bit more about mysticism. So we have the crystal ball out. I've got some of my texts, including my teachers. So Kimberly up from the salon told me that about this book my teacher wrote that I didn't have. So I found a used copy online, and I have to read it still because I have
Ooh.
3 copies of his second book, and he's passed away. So I felt like I needed to have a copy of his book.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm curious, what's your relationship to mysticism and how does astrology fit into that or not? Because one of the things that I see and I appreciate about astrologers is bringing all this data to our conversations. It's not that I'm against seizing, sort of snatching things out of the sky with our intuition. I think that there's a place for that. But what I appreciate about astrologers is we come armed with all this data. And we bring that to the conversation. So how does mysticism, weave into your practices?
Yes. I believe that the way we see the chart as individual astrologers is the mysticism at play. The mysticism is the intersectional connection of all of the synchronicities in real time. I think,
Break that down for me.
yeah, okay. So yeah, the mysticism is the individual synchronicities we as astrologers, when looking at a chart, are able to see, and the way that 5 different astrologers looking at a chart may see 5 different things that tell them a very similar story, and they would be able to use those different data points of what they are looking at to describe different archetypes within someone's chart.
I do love when there are multiple validating things going on in the chart.
Yeah.
And when I'm doing predictive readings and casting a horary chart, you know, I look, you know, mainly I'm looking at like the moon's next aspect or the first lord's next aspect. But if I'm seeing it multiple times, I can be like, okay, yeah, this is what's happening. And I agree. I mean, my teacher would always say that he wanted us all to read the chart the same way. So he was a little more sciencey about it. He wanted us to be like, this isn't, you know, this is this, and that means this. It was very like A plus B equals C type situation. But I agree that everyone develops their techniques, and you do find astrologers reading charts coming to similar conclusions, which I believe they should, because I feel like if multiple people read a chart differently, then is the truth really in there, or is it just interpreted?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting you mention that, because I do believe that there is a really interesting conversation with energies, not genders, but an important conversation to be had between the masculine and the feminine approaches to esoteric tools like astrology.
Interesting.
Because I do think a masculine approach, acting in an unconscious way, is attached to something dogmatic around we must be in agreement about the way we see the chart, because we must be.
You're calling me out.
We must
I'm being
be
too masculine.
No,
I'm so masculine.
No, I'm talking about your chart. No, your teacher. Your teacher's approach, right?
Yeah, agreed.
What it wants to be is respected, kind of the way science. So a lot of like male astrologers would say they don't care. I'm talking more like straight men would say they don't care, but I think that underneath there is a yearning to be respected by the wider society, collective, and science, because they're used to being generally respected in the world in other ways.
Oh my God, I'm feeling really called out.
Why?
No, I'm not in a bad way. No, not in a bad way. Just like that, my approach, the way I've been trained, is that like, yeah, wanting to be like having my work respected in a broader way.
Yeah, you do deserve respect. That's normal. That's human. But I want you to know, just from even my one initial impression of meeting you, I didn't experience you that way at all. You have a really fluid, open. I don't want to come back to the 3 again, but I'm going to. But you clocked intuitively. I don't want to spill the tea for all the listeners, but even when I came into our little meeting, I was thrown off by an interaction with someone else, and you invited me into the space in a really fluid, energetic way, and listened to some of my takes that I don't remember being extremely academically sourced, were more intuitive, and you asked me specific questions about that were like meaningful to me in that moment. So I want you to say you don't really need to feel called out.
No, but I appreciate that. We have to question the way we all approach the topic of divination.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I appreciate that. I think I unconsciously and consciously have a sensitive point for like people feeling included. And so like when somebody's like, I don't even always think I'm aware of it. Sometimes I am, but a lot of times it's important to me that people feel included. So it's kind of a thing.
Where's your Venus, the ruler of
Cancer.
Oh, the ruler of your 11th is in Cancer.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what a good year you're gonna
Really? Really?
Well, Jupiter will transit your natal Venus.
I know it's in the eighth house, so it brings up stuff sometimes.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
But
It
we'll
could
see.
bring you money. People wanting to work on your project. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it out loud.
Or my app.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm working on an astrology app. I have some hurdles, but I'll plug it later when it's like farther along.
Yeah, people wanting to give you money for
An
it.
investment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, stay tuned, y'all. Okay, I want to get into it. So here's the part where I embarrassingly say that we're talking about Beyonce again. We are gonna touch on it, and there's a really good reason why. But I might just rename this segment like the Beyonce discussion because I can't avoid it, and I don't care to avoid it. So I'm gonna lean in.
Yeah.
And just accept it.
Am I allowed to come closer so I can see the chart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's move the orb.
Orb.
Okay. So first, we're gonna look at LA's chart. So walk me through why we look and how we can look at like a mundane chart of the formation of something, like a company or a city or a country. Is that a
In my
manageable?
wheelhouse?
Is that a manageable question?
It's a big ask, but I'll tell you, I'm just going to tell you how I do it.
Yeah.
Is what I'm going to do. I do look at cities as moving energies, as like people with their own archetypes and establishing features and their own greater purpose and the way they call different people to come and engage with them, right? Because when you pull a relocated chart or when you do astrocartography, but a good start for all listeners is just looking up relocated charts in different cities that you visited.
So what that does for our listeners, when you're born somewhere on the Earth, there's where all the planets are, and that they're kind of fixed against the constellations. But where you are on the Earth actually rotates the whole chart, and that makes sense, right? Because when you're on the opposite side of the Earth, that's daytime versus the other side is the nighttime. So the whole wheel turns as the day progresses. How long does the sign stay on the ascendant? Like 2.5? Is it 2.5 hours?
Yeah,
something like that.
Ish. Yeah.
And so also then, if you want to move to a place that's going to be really nice, you would try to put Venus on your ascendant. You're gonna have like a beautiful experience, like a good place to go on vacation, somewhere where your chart would have your Venus rising.
Yes, but here's why I love the relocated chart versus the not general focus, it is a specific focus, but the focus a lot more folks have on the lines is I was called to move to Los Angeles very likely because it puts my greater benefic Jupiter exactly conjunct my MC in my relocated chart in Virgo. And I am a writer, and for better and worse, I think I am called to be a little bit of a discerning taste maker, critic in other ways. But anyway, my natal chart as this giant, beautiful 11th house stellium that I love, that when I moved to LA, moves my 11th house stellium in my relocated chart into the 12th house. So I've had a very 12th house journey with Los Angeles, but I do believe I'm called here to do 12th house things, to learn astrology, to learn how to be fucking alone. As a North Node in the first house, yeah, I need to learn. I needed to learn how to be alone. I needed to be isolated from my comfort zone. Yeah, there's a million, and it brought me to a spiritual path. But yeah, so if you pull the relocated chart, it gives you the whole picture and lets you know when you go there what becomes more hidden, like my big stellium in the 11th house becomes a little more hidden. But my moon gets happier, so.
So when we look at a chart of, we can look at when a company is founded, when a country is founded. Mm-hmm. You try to get the estimated time that like those documents were signed, the thing was written down, whatever it was. like for the U.S., there's the when we think the Declaration of Independence was signed, those types of things. So obviously it's July 4th. So we have this September 4th, 1781 chart for Los Angeles. I have to do a little bit more digging to understand the validity of this. I know you said there's another chart.
There's another chart. So I'm so excited to mess with this no matter what. We're going to have a ton of fun.
Oh my God.
But there is another one out and about that's a very Aries dominant chart to think about if you want to look it up.
So we're going to look at this chart for LA. This is listed at 9:18 a.m. And we have Libra rising.
Yes.
So we have Libra rising. And I have the chart, I don't always use whole sign houses. I do and I don't. I go back and forth. I kind of like to know where the house cusps are. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of late degree Libra, but we have Venus in Libra in the 12th house, almost conjunct Neptune. So that already just says a lot about LA's identity as this place of beauty, but also the allure and the not only the mysticism, but just that allure and the fantasy of it all, right?
Yes. You know what else I think of when I think of Neptune, especially Neptune that close to, in conjunction with, Venus, is I have Neptune in the first house and a background as an actor. And I think about all of the Neptune in the first house charts I know.
Like Marilyn Monroe has Neptune on the first house cusp.
Filmmaking, because mark my words, every Neptune first house person you take a photo of them, it's one thing. You get a video of them, 3,000 times better. That person in moving image, it's another thing. It's filmmaking. The Neptune in the first house, or a prominent Neptune, is filmmaking, because you just can't capture in a photograph what you can in moving energy and with light.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm already obsessed with this. Okay, look at this. So we have this Neptune. I love that idea because Neptune is it's like, I think of it as almost like a smoke screen. It's like you can project things onto it. Yes. It's like a fog. And then Mercury in Leo in the 10th house of that the career is like performance and communication. I mean, it's like, you guys, this is so literal. We have the Sun in Virgo in the 11th house. Virgo is about meticulousness, like having a craft, being perfecting it. And, in LA, you do become known for having a craft and it's not just, acting and filmmaking, whatever it is, it has to be exceptional to be here and to exist here.
Well, it's exceptional. It's perfectionistic. It's hyper focus on health and wellness, right? You guys, most of my favorite directors are Virgos, as Venus in Virgo, Jupiter in Virgo. And Virgo filmmakers in particular do extremely well in Hollywood, and Hollywood is Los Angeles. So Bong Joon-ho, Park Chan-wook, Ava DuVernay, Noah Baumbach, Sam Esmail. These are Virgo filmmakers I'm so obsessed with, who are meticulous and hyper-specific in the way they move, but just so incredible at what they do. And of course, we're going to talk about Beyoncé, Michael Jackson, Virgos, who maybe had their own relationship with LA. But and then with Mercury and Leo, LA communicates as Leo. LA is not the sun, obviously, according to this chart, but LA wants to be, right? Our communication
Well, there's a mutual
style.
Reception.
Yeah.
Between the Sun and Mercury.
Yeah.
So they receive each other. The communication, the performance, it feeds on itself.
Yes.
Yeah, and it gets better. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I think about Virgo. So really in the ancient world, Venus is going to be the tastemaker. But I think of all the archetypes of signs, Virgo is one of the big tastemakers, because Virgo decides what isn't acceptable, and what isn't acceptable determines what is. So LA says, that's not cool. So by default, I believe that Mercury in Leo says, well, this is what is, though. So there's this relationship Los Angeles has with being this quiet, West Coast, like, hey, dude, tastemaker.
Yeah. And we're kind of known for being like the laid back, like tastemakers of the world. And we're casual, but we like have opinions and we are all drawn to the performance and entertainment world. I mean, that's why it's so fun to be here because things are happening.
Yes.
It's such a cultural like centerpiece of the world. And I think to also thinking of yourself as like the center of the universe, you know, this moon in Aries.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's about me. It's about me. And also having that moon in Aries oppose this Venus-Neptune in Libra, I think that also is like your emotions can come at a cost to this city.
Yes. I also want to say more about Moon in Aries. In my experience reading charts and just living in the world, a shadow part of the Moon in Aries related to mom, right? Because mom, the moon tells us a lot about one's relationship with mom.
Yes.
This can be self-centered mothers and like deeply problematically self-centered mothers. And that can create a kid who needs an escape and runs away to follow their dreams, find themselves. And I
Yeah.
think that is really interesting.
Yeah, people come here to discover themselves,
Yeah.
to figure out who they are. You know, I mean, people obviously go to New York too, and we could look at New York a whole other time because that has a very different quality, and I'm sure we would see all of that. But I just think this is interesting that the sixth, well, it depends because this is, if we do whole sign houses, Libra is the first, and Aries becomes the seventh. But I kind of think it's interesting this 6-12 relationship because it is a 6-12 kind of city. Like you're working really hard to like avoid the kind of like the pain of failure.
Oh, yeah. And it's the most transient city in the world. So you spend so much time alone. I want every Angelino to feel very seen, heard, and validated in any feelings of ongoing isolation because I have a spiritual and energetic theory that one of my good friends who is a psychic and an angel and very cute, I think he's a Cancer gay man named James Benet. And he once said, and I'll never forget it, that it's in the name, the city of the lost angels, that a lot of people are brought to LA with an idea, but really it's a calling of something they're here to heal or see their way through. And they will not be released from LA until they do. So you will meet a lot of people that live in LA who are like, it's fine, but I wish I lived in New York, or like, I'm struggling, or like, I would go anywhere if I could, or like, you know, whatever, like, I am so lonely here, there's no community. But you will find a lot of those people either feel stuck or legitimately are. But it's very easy to see once you get to know a lot of people in the city, like, oh, you know, we're all humans, we all have things to work through, but these are the things you probably have to work through that you just haven't come out on the other side of. And once you do, that door will be unlocked.
If you want to leave.
If you want to leave, yeah.
I do feel like so I think a lot of cities in the world, you know, this is where I do get into my more woo-woo side of things because I do think there are like energy vortexes around the world. And LA, I think other people agree with this, but I do think that I've heard multiple psychics say there's an energy vortex in LA. I think its center point is in Griffith Park. I think it like radiates from Griffith Park, and it's like where the Hollywood sign is. I think it radiates down from there because if you've lived in Los Feliz, or if you've been to kind of Los Feliz, it does feel like kind of the eye of the storm over there. I don't know if there's a calmness, but then as you get more towards like Hollywood, East Hollywood, farther away into the city, you feel this hurricane. You can really like sense it. Until it kind of dissipates. I think by the time you get to the west side, you don't feel it as much. I think the west side feels very different than the rest of LA. So it's like far away from the vortex.
Yes, and the water is probably purifying things as
Totally.
you move.
Totally.
So yeah.
Okay, so we've got all this interesting stuff going on here. But yeah, I agree. People come to LA to work something through. And I don't think you can leave until you've figured out what that is.
And some people that feel very
Like Hotel California, kind of a
yeah.
little bit.
A lot of people that feel very LA to me, Billie Eilish, Beyonce, are very 12th house dominant. So it's interesting you making sense of, is it the 12th house dominant or the first house dominance?
It feels 12th house, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I like, as a Hellenistically trained astrologer, I usually look at whole signs, but then in horary, we still look at the Regiomontanus house cusps because that's just what they used. So I look at both and I see what makes sense.
Also, fun fact, if you're not Hellenistic to know, is in the 12th house, well, Saturn has its joy, and Saturn is associated with maritime trades in the Hellenistic. So I always think of the 12th house being maritime trades. And I feel like a lot of people that love LA, that choose to be here long term, get really into like the marina at some point.
Yeah, I lived in Mar Vista for 6 years and I loved it over there. Okay, let's touch on a couple more things and then we will look at Beyonce's chart too because there's some interesting stuff here. So I wanted to point out Jupiter in 21 degrees Scorpio. Again, that's sort of first housey, second house, depending on how you look at that. Here it's really right on the second house cusp, and I think that Jupiter, just speaking a lot to the money of LA, and being in Scorpio, I think it comes with like barbed wire. You know, it's like it's like careful what you wish for kind of a thing, and I think that it speaks to what can happen when you start getting access to things.
Yes, and thinking about the first versus the second house, with Jupiter there. Jupiter is going to ask us questions in the second house of what do you really value, right? And Jupiter can be overindulgent. So I think that's a direct storyline to what you brought up is it can be the joy of getting what we want, right? And in this chart, Jupiter would be our greater benefic because LA would be a diurnal chart, a sun sect, a day chart. But yeah, so Jupiter would be the primary or the superior benefic we're dealing with. And yeah, it is asking us.
And, you know, being in Mars domicile, you know, Mars doesn't rest, you know? And so I think that, like, there's this drive to achieve, like, material things. And I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that, but you see that here. I mean, with people's multi-million-dollar mansions, estates, you know, that's how, in many places, but especially LA, at least in the United States, that there's that drive to have wealth.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. And it's a city that can produce a lot of it. I mean, it would be, we could do an extensively interesting political or economy dumpster dive, but considering the fact that California is the 5th largest economy,
Right.
4th and 5th.
And LA has the most
But the
people.
question of how much wealth, I wonder, does LA versus the Bay versus San Francisco bring in? I'm so curious to know.
Yeah, I'm sure. Probably, I don't know. It depends because Silicon Valley stuff. But okay, let's overlay this on Beyonce's chart. This is crazy, you guys. Okay, Beyonce also has Libra rising. She also has Venus in Libra, and so there's this like immediate, just.
And she has the sun in Virgo.
Sun in Virgo. Okay. Oh my God, I forgot to tell you guys this. Oh my God, listen to this. Why are we even talking about Beyonce's chart? Okay, Beyonce was born exactly 200 years to the day after Los Angeles was founded. So LA is September 4th, 1781. Beyonce is September 4th, 1981. 200 years exactly. this despite the fact of that being such an even, beautiful number, you know, Beyonce is such a fit in LA for so many reasons. I mean, she's a superstar. She has almost every planet on a fixed star. You know, she did try living in New York for some period of time, didn't like it there. It convinced Jay-Z to move back to LA, where she seems to feel very comfortable. And then we look at this, and she's really just like such a perfect fit. She also has, yeah, of course, she has the sun in basically the same degree of Virgo in the 11th house. The 11th house also, in my experience, shows somebody who's like a chosen one. Like, if you have an 11th house sun, like, you'd be more likely to like win a lottery, or if you're raising your hand in an audience, like more likely to get chosen. So because you're in, you know, the 11th house is kind of that crowd, like you're the sun that shines in the crowd. And so her having that 11th house that matches the LA chart, the Venus that matches, you know, and then she has her moon in Scorpio exactly on Jupiter's, so that the wealth that she has accumulated in LA. And that moon, you know, whether it's greed or not, she has that drive, the endless drive. And anybody who's worked with her says how she just like doesn't sleep, she doesn't eat, she barely needs to go to the bathroom. She's just like a workhorse. And you really see that. And then she has her Mars in Leo, which kind of works with the Mercury in Leo a little bit. So that performer, that communicator, not the most eloquent, you know, conversationalist necessarily in her interviews, but like has nothing to do with the intellect that's going on underneath all of that. So I just can't believe the level of match of it's like a lock and key. I mean, it's basically the same thing going on.
Yeah. Also, I want to say, I always feel that when someone, so there's basically a 30-some% chance that you have your sun and your Mercury in the same sign, because Mercury can't travel more than one sign away.
Right.
But I always think it's a little bit harder for folks with sun and Mercury to be more succinct and concise when they don't have sun and Mercury in the same sign. And LA is not a very succinct. LA is known to be like silly, wacky. We're surfer dudes. We're verbose. Yeah. Beyonce can be a little bit that way. I cannot get over the sun conjunct sun within 1 degree for Beyonce and LA. They're both born on September 4th, which is the master builder, the don't eat, don't drink, all work. And what they both have in common, what's really interesting about that number 4, is they usually have 2 personalities, work personality and off-time personality. And I feel that the reason LA catches such heat around like we're lazy or we don't work or we're stupid is because when someone in LA is working, you don't see them or hear from them. It's very 12th house. They disappear into their isolation of their rabbit hole of work.
Right.
And when they're not working, everybody's at the beach, everybody's at Pilates, everybody's messing around.
That is so true.
Yes.
People disappear when they're working.
Yes.
So all people see is people not working.
100%, especially with that Venus and Neptune in LA in the 12th house, and with Beyonce, that Venus and Jupiter and Saturn.
And Mercury.
And
she also had Pluto conjunct ascendant.
Yeah, all in the 12th house. It's like, yeah, we both know Sasha Fierce and Beyonce are 2 different people, 2 different personalities, right? Beyonce has that powerful Mars conjunct North Node.
Wow, I didn't even think about
at the top of the chart, at the top of the LA chart as well. Really powerful stuff. In the 11th or 10th house, depending on the house system that you're using, yeah, Beyonce has that North Node conjunct Mars.
And it's right there on like 1 degree.
Oh.
So yeah, I mean, basically everything that she is working to be, like it fits her, it suits her here.
Yes.
So we're starting to run out of time, so I want to move on, but this is so loco. I'm gonna try to post some of this stuff so that you guys can like load these charts because it's freaking nuts. Anyway, you know what? I'm renaming this segment just like famous Uranus Beyoncé investigations because that's all that ends up happening. Although I think I'm gonna do Kim Kardashian soon because that's another interesting LA person.
Yeah,
Just
also Libra dominant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so show and tell. Did you bring something?
Yeah. So I have this big witchy book. I'm obsessed with it. It's perfect. I worked in.
I'm obsessed with it. It's perfect.
Yes, I worked in restaurants for many years, and a man named Phil. I've had too many karmic interactions with men named Phil that I usually have falling outs with, but I feel like that I'm supposed to meet them. They're supposed to be in my life, Phil and Philip. He gave me this witchy book with this insane paper, and I only exclusively use it. I use it for NORWAC, for very specific screenplay ideas and astrology class notes that are really, really, really important to me that I want to have like forever. And I brought pyrite because I'm obsessed with crystals. I could walk you through all of my crystal jewelry, my Libyan glass.
Lapis, right? Lapis?
Yeah, lapis, lazuli,
What is
Libyan
this?
glass, black tourmaline,
tourmaline.
and everyone needs to wear one at all
I keep it by
times.
my desk. I play with it while I'm on calls.
Yeah, moldavite, green aventurine for money.
Moldavite, that's
pyrite
the
for money.
alien crystal, right?
Yes.
Alien crystal. From,
Yeah.
It's from meteorite.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
That's-
cool. It's supposed to
that's-
transform your life.
strong.
I feel like Scorpios are walking moldavite, but transformation, baby.
Transformación.
Whether you like it or not. Yeah, and then citrine and carnelian.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about real briefly what it's a good time for, kind of like closing out with cosmic forecast. So Mars just entered Virgo. I had my sun 29 degrees Leo. I had Mars, transiting my sun for the past couple weeks, like approaching that 29-degree conjunction. And this is when I got obsessed with building my app. Like I was like overly caffeinated. Like I had so much energy. I barely slept for like the past 2 weeks, just like working on this concept that I have that may or may not even come to fruition because Apple doesn't think it's unique enough.
Boo.
Boo. But anyway, yeah, it was like this, like I was just like almost like furiously engulfed in energy and just like had to outlet it. And so that's what I've been going through. And then it just entered Virgo, and now it's like, I'm like, okay, I have to like look at what I've created and like start to refine it and see if I can get this approved and pushed through this app review process. So I think that's really interesting. Mars moving from
Yes.
this Leo energy into Virgo, where it's Virgo's kind of I think it's considered its joy in Virgo. It's not exalted or anything, but Mars likes to chip away at something that it's working on.
Yes, I love Mars and Virgo. Yeah, you even having me here around this time, because both of my benefics are in Virgo, feels really nice.
Makes
So
sense.
that's and it's my ninth house. So we're talking about ninth house things. Astrology is a ninth house thing.
Higher thinking.
Yeah. So that's cool.
And what are your first impressions so far of Jupiter and Cancer? I know it's just squared Saturn.
Yes. So it is going to be interacting with Saturn lightly because Saturn moves so much slower and Saturn will be retrograding back. But Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter is exalted there. This is going to bring up a lot of goddess stuff, I think we're going to see a lot of women's and just feminine people being more respected and a lot of feminine wisdom coming to
Just
the
what we need.
forefront.
Just what
Yeah.
we need.
Yeah.
So what would you tell people to lean into this week then, with their feminine power?
Ooh, yes. And I love Virgo. If you think about Virgo, pretty feminine, the virgin or whatever.
The virgin or whatever.
Yeah.
No big deal.
That's right. Sextiling Jupiter in Cancer. I think there is like a way to honor the feminine within everyone, because the feminine within everyone is the psychic within everyone, and the intuitive. And it's really important to pay respect and have reverence for when I think about Cancer and Virgo, there's direct associations with like the stomach or the breast. It's like our gut usually speaks first, not always, but often. Like, what is my gut telling me about the way I'm moving? And that can help you use both Mars and Jupiter to your benefit to move more appropriately.
Listening to your gut.
Yeah.
That's a great, like, who can disagree with that? Yeah. Okay, closing reflections. That's what I wrote. If LA is your rising sign, we love you. No, but you know, I'm interested to see who has Libra placements in their chart. You know, also any Leo placements. Those, you know, any of these connection points to LA. Like, if you live in LA, what keeps you here? What drew you to LA? And I think maybe you have some of these connection points in your chart as well. Any other closing thoughts that you have?
I have part of fortune in Libra, so now I'm going to be thinking about that differently.
Oh.
Yeah.
Your fortune is here.
Yeah, and I have Jupiter very close to the sun in Virgo.
11 degrees?
Yeah, I have Jupiter at 9.
Oh, so. That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Olivia, for being here. This was so fun. I'm going to have to for sure have you back because I think we could probably fill hours of time, right? I mean,
we could. I literally feel like it's been 5 minutes.
I know, it's been an hour or so. But thank you so much. This was so fun.
Oh my God,
I'm so curious to see what people think about the Libra chart. And where can people find you?
Oh, yeah. So the Olivia Hope on Instagram, low key, I kind of hate it there, but I'm trying to do better
But you're a
about
TikTok girly.
posting there. I'm more of a TikTok girly. I'm the Malefic Woman, both on TikTok and YouTube. And then my website, if you ever want to book with me, is millennialastrologer.com. And I hope
my God, look at you. Did you buy that 10 years ago?
No, it was just open. It was open for biz. You can also find me on Yelp there. Check out my Yelp reviews. My Yelp and Google reviews for the Millennial Astrologer.
Bye. See you next week. Mwah.